constantly talk about like what's next for Brawlhalla, and I'll get into this topic now. We always talk about what's next in the world of Brawlhalla. We don't know, you know. Oh, whatever the next crossover is. Sometimes they make game modes. I don't even know if you want to count whatever they did for G.I. Joe as a game mode. Actually, I think it was just a new map of an old game mode. I don't really know. Yeah, I think it's yeah, it's an old map of an old game mode, so that doesn't really count. And I don't know who plays that, but that doesn't count. So every once in a while, they will come out with a mode though that is pretty cool, which is like Morph, which is like Dojo, and which is like Crew Battle. So every once in a while,
you just need to up the damage.
Yeah, because it's like, oof, it takes long. Those battles take long otherwise. So, make a long story short, you know, we look. There's other game modes that they obviously need to visit, and while they do it really in the crossovers, there is something to be said if they're ever going to really do a game mode for Brawlhalla as a Brawlhalla game mode. It's gonna be really recognized. Crew Battle was recognized. It's like a big deal, but I wonder if they're gonna get into another game mode that's like really recognized. And I feel like I have a few ideas of which would be a really cool game mode. And this always gives me the extension of like, oh, you know what the Brawlhalla 3.0 looks like. So that's definitely one of them. And I think a cool game mode. Oh, yeah. A cool game mode would be something like, and I think I discussed this with Cycronus before. I was like, what if there was a way of which, almost like Switchcraft, you would. Oh, that was close. Almost like Switchcraft, you could switch. You know, you'll different characters can have different moves essentially. But realistically, what it is you start off with your weapons, and there is no such thing as like. Let's not say okay. I won't restrict it, but basically you can pick up a weapon, right? However, what can happen is that when you knock out a weapon from an opponent, it disappears. And in this game mode, it doesn't disappear anymore. You can pick up your character's weapon. You can pick up your opponent's weapon and use it. Now it could be simple, and it could be like, oh well, now you just have a new weapon, and you know, you use that weapon as a moveset. But let's say you pick a character that has different moves technically than the person that you're fighting against. Well, it could be something like Switchcraft, where it's like, well, then you gain the abilities of whatever weapon you picked up. So basically your opponent's weapon, you have their skill set. And I think this could be tailored in many different ways. It could be that you have their signatures. It could be that you only have the moves of your guy if yours matches. But I think the one that would be the most fun is that you get a signature off of the character that you're battling against. Like, that would be really cool. I think that would put a crazy dynamic spin in this game that we have not seen, and I would love to test that out. What if it was that like, oh, I can, because it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, I can pick up a weapon in this game. You knock out a weapon in this game, and it's like, where does this weapon go? And I mean, obviously it's like, oh, the weapon disappears, like many things. Like, how do you gravity cancel move? That's like not a real thing either. So, you know, I won't go as far as to say like, oh, nothing makes sense, but
gravity cancel.
It would be cool though if there was a game mode that you have your weapon set, and it's either that you can pick up your weapon, or you have both your. And actually, let me not go there because that's a whole other game mode. I want to go through that, but you basically could pick up a weapon, and you pick up your weapon, and if the weapon gets knocked out, this basically mimics how first-person shooters are, and free-to-play first-person shooters more often than not. But Fortnite and stuff does it too, so it's still a shooter. But other games do it, in which what happens is when you kill your opponent, their weapon drops. So obviously when they have like epic weapons and all that other stuff that they've collected in the stage, or they have like skins on their weapons, Valorant does the same thing. you pick up the weapon and you have like their skin, the whole thing or whatever until you die. And that could be the case until you get KO'd. Or until you like, you know, you actively don't have the weapon anymore. Then you have that person's weapon. So you have the way it looks. You have, and you can have like, it could just be as simple as you could only grab the weapon that is the same type as your character. So if we are both scythe players, but we have two different other weapons, I can only pick up the weapon that it's a scythe. It'll drop it and it knows like I'm a scythe player. So when I pick it up, I will now have a scythe and it's my character. Like it could probably look like your scythe, but it'll be like my signature set. But I think the cooler one would be that any weapon that drops, when you pick up that weapon, it's attached to the character it came from. So now the signature kit is attached to that. So now all of a sudden, if I'm using something like Jiro, then, and you know, like I'm facing an Artemis and they drop their rocket lance. I pick up the rocket lance. I'm using a rocket lance with Jiro, and he has his signature set. I think I'm onto something. I think this is a solid game mode.
He has Artemis's moveset?
Yeah, he has the signatures. I feel like they have all the tools in place because Switchcraft exists.
Yeah.
So everybody can do each other's signatures because of how they made this game, which is awesome. But there's so much more potential there, and I think that's a solid game mode. BMG, if you're listening, all I want is the little bit of credit. I know that they'll be like, we thought of that before. But I think legit making a game mode where you can pick someone else's weapon, but you gain their signature skill, like their kit, from the weapon pickup would be awesome. And that's its own game mode. You know, I think it's really more obvious. The one game mode that they have not done is actual tag. Crew battles is like the game mode that like, oh, okay.
The tag system is gonna be a thing, yeah.
Where am I? Oh, cool. I made it. I made it back. But I think, yeah, tag is actually needed in this game. And I think they're actually waiting for like a really good opportunity. I don't really think that it's like, oh, they just don't want to make it. Nah, I think just like crew battles, they are waiting for like the best moment to like actually make it. Which tag is gonna be dope when they make it. That's gonna be like a whole. That's gonna be a whole thing. So we definitely need crew. We definitely need tag. Tag will be awesome when they do it. And then, what kind of game mode is this? You could pick up weapons, but when your weapon gets knocked out, it doesn't disappear. It actually like drops on the ground. If it drops, they could actually probably pick it up in midair, which would be crazy. It could hit you. It could knock in this weird way with physics. They could probably go back, pick it up, going, oh, and you know what? You know what's really cool about this that I did not discuss? It raises the bar on strategy. So you legit play with people, and you'll see what people play with, and they legit can make a strategy where they're like, oh, they're playing with Artemis? I can't wait to grab this guy's scythe when you can get it. And you're like, yo, I'm going to destroy him with this weapon. And you're like... There's potentially 4 different weapons, 4 different signature types that you could play with in a single match. Now I've raised the bar.
True.
I think this is a viable game mode. Chat, tell me if I'm wrong. I think this is a real one.
Oh, it's real.
Yeah. It's definitely worth discussing. Like, what would we call it though? What kind of game mode is this? It's not Switchcraft, but battle royales are just it's just battle royale. So what is this? I feel like something royale because it's not like a battle royale, but that's like one of the biggest things about like, oh, pick up your person's weapon, the person you beat's weapon. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna rob your kit, whatever the case may be. You know, Black Ops does it. Like your whole body drops technically, like your whole kit. So you could pick up in person's entire thing. Yeah, so I wouldn't call it battle royale, but I would call it like, I don't know if it's like weapon royale, or weapon royale's not that bad.
Why the hell did it?
I don't know, but I was trying to prevent him from hitting you once, which would have been. Nice. No, now. Okay, continuing the conversation. Okay, so yes, Andy's asking. So you copy his moves with that weapon, or do you have your own set of moves? When you start the match, you can only pick up, and when a weapon drops from the stage, from the game itself, you can only pick up the two weapons that you have as a character, that your character has. Period. But you fight in this game, and so the way you would fight in this game normally is that after a while of me hitting someone, damn, that was pretty slick. After a while, I knock off someone's weapons in this game. That was technically a double kill. You technically knock off someone's weapon, and what happens in this game is that it just disappears. But what if it didn't disappear? What if instead of it disappearing, it lands back on the stage, and it doesn't need to look like the way the weapons drop. It looks like the weapon, but it's just on the ground. Like the way I would just drop the weapon before, like the seconds before it disappears. It actually just drops and it stays there like that, and it says like pick up or whatever. Like you could pick it up. Maybe there's a timer on that too. Maybe that lasts for
like a 5 second time. No, not 5 seconds. I'll give
not
it
5 seconds, but
3 second timing.
Yeah, maybe like a 3 second time limit.
3 second timer to be able to pick up the weapon.
Yeah. So they either knock it out, or they knock it out, or if you decide to throw a weapon, let's say if it hits the ground, they're able to pick it up. You can't just pick it up in the midair, so you can't just pick it up on flight to yourself. Like it won't do that. But if it hits the ground and it stops, so someone could try to roll it off the ground. So if it rolls, so by the time it stops, then you have 3 seconds to pick it up. Anybody. So and that's what it is. You could pick up your opponent's weapon, and so the weapon that they threw at you is the weapon that shows up. And instead of it being an easy one would be oh, maybe you could only pick up the weapon that you also own if you have the same type of weapon, and you still only have your signatures. You just have the ability to pick up someone else's weapon. That's easy. That's doable. Hell, that can happen in this game now. That can happen in this game now. That should do it. But what if there was the ability or mode which, okay, not only can I pick up the weapon that you dropped because I knocked it out of you, or you dropped it and it stopped velocity on the ground, but what if I gain your signatures from that weapon kit? And it's that's it. It's a whole new strategy of play. I could see esports games where they're doing commentary and seeing replays of you using someone like Sandstorm or whatever, you using gauntlets, right? As he's going and he's doing his moves in midair, you see it knocks it out. He throws his weapon up and in turn grabs the other person's weapon to continue a combo with a whole other weapon.
How about we just throw a curveball into this, because at the end of the day, then it's like saying, well, every character is going to be the same in terms of it doesn't matter what weapon they have, they're all going to have the same moves because of the weapon that they get from that person.
So the difference with that and the reason why, because you're oh, no character would be different. That's not necessarily true. There's strategy around you not being you preventing you're preventing your opponent from picking up your weapon. There's strategy around that. There's ways of which it's oh, I can't let him pick up my weapon. I need to try to prevent that. Or sometimes there could be ways of which it doesn't work. It's such a small window of which it pops off. Maybe it's a 1 second cooldown before you can grab it, and it won't work unless it's 1 second that you grabbed it. So then even the commentary and everything, it's do you know how tight it needs to be for you to grab their weapon and the person to have continued the combo with your weapon? the window could have been really short. That's a lot of skill that maybe that takes place. Or maybe it's 2 seconds. There is some probably fine detail of which it's not completely open and it gets crazy. And there's competitiveness because it's actually not easy to do. Plus, it's also not easy to remember 4 different sets of skill types, 4 different signature types.
Yeah.
Like you would think, like, oh wow, they have like all these moves. But what if they only really know their moveset? But what their big thing is that they're preventing. Ah, that was lucky. They're preventing you from grabbing newer weapons, so they basically did this whole thing for that. But with Intern, they're not like messing themselves up, but they're not giving themselves an advantage because they're with an unfamiliar weapon.